Welcome to your Fantasy Fulfilled, right here on ESPN The Network. I'm your host, Latasha Miles, a.k.a. Joan Madden, the Gridiron Goddess, and I'm back again like the Browns and the Titans coming off of a bye week. And these are the last two teams for the season, so there's no more bye weeks on deck. And speaking of bye weeks, please make sure that you go out and buy a copy of my book, When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, The Ultimate Survival Guide for Relationships and Households During Football Season. And it's available right now on Amazon.com and CreateSpace.com. So please make sure you go out and show some support, and I thank you in advance. I want to take a moment to also acknowledge the Kansas City Chiefs in their huge win, snapping the Oakland Raiders' winning streak Thursday night and extending their own winning streak to 3 games and making things a lot more interesting now in the AFC West. All right, no doubt. Now back to fantasy football. Now that we are in the second week of December, it's about that time in fantasy football for playoffs. You kidding me? In my throwback Coach Jim Mora voice. But yeah, I'm going to help make sure that you coast your way to victory down the stretch. So hey, have no fear. Joan Madden is here. And let's kick this thing off for week number 14 with your automatics. And I'm going to kick this off with Jameis Winston as your automatic quarterback. Now, Tampa has been on a hot streak lately, winning 4 games, and Winston has been a huge part of the reason why. Over the past quarter of games, the sophomore signal caller has thrown 6 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, averaged 286 yards, and has completed 68% of his passes. And with the generous Saints secondary on deck today in this divisional rivalry game, much of the same is to be expected as the Bucs attempt to catapult into sole possession of first place in the NFC South. In addition, since he is facing Drew Brees, who is looking to bounce back from not throwing a touchdown last week for the first time in years, this game could be a shootout, and the former Heisman Trophy winner will need to put up some numbers to counterattack against a frustrated Brees. So, for this week, if you want to win some, then you should go with Jameis Winston. Moving on to the automatic running back, you should go with DeMarco Murray this week. Yes, I'm aware that the Titans are facing the reigning Super Bowl champs, but the workhorse Murray has a favorable matchup in today's contest. Now, the Broncos' most vulnerable part of their defense is definitely their ability to stop the run. Well, not stop the run, I should say. And as a matter of fact, this susceptible component of the Champs defense can easily be remixed, and the name should be called the Chumps defense. Again, just for this aspect of the game. Denver ranks number 27 in rush defense, surrendering an average of 123 yards per game, including a more recent outing of 154 yards allowed. They weren't able to stop Latavius Murray, and even with Derek Wolfe in the lineup, Kansas City still scored 30 points in Denver and had involvement from the running game as well. And with the additional week to prepare for the Champs' visit to Nashville, the Titans are waiting to take advantage of this generous core. So you better hurry up and put Murray up in your lineup today. Next, go with Terrell Pryor with your automatic wide receiver this week. Sure, the Browns are winless, and they've had an extra week to prepare for this familiar divisional rival at home against the Bengals. Now, Cincinnati is struggling themselves, and their secondary isn't quite as threatening as it once was, and they haven't really been able to fully recuperate from losing Terrence Newman a couple of seasons ago and Leon Hall this past offseason. Regardless of who the quarterback has been, and when he hasn't been injured, Pryor has been the go-to guy on the Browns offense. And although he didn't see the field last season with Cincinnati, he was with Hugh then. He's been with Hugh in Oakland. He's with Hugh now following the coach to Cleveland. So there's definitely a trick or two up the sleeve for the former Buckeye. So check for no one else prior to checking for Terrell Pryor. As for the tight end position, you got to go with Ladarius Green and give him the green light as your automatic. We finally saw a true explosion from my fellow Maybaby during Week 13 against the Giants. He caught 6 passes for over 100 yards and a touchdown, and that pattern should continue today as the Steelers travel to the Bills. Reason being, Buffalo has a stronger front seven and the better capacity at stopping the run. Their secondary is their weakness, and they have more plans to try to contain Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, and they won't necessarily have a game plan to eliminate Green from the equation. Now, I know that there might be some concern as Jesse James still receives more snaps than Green, but don't be deterred. When it comes to points per snap and points per route, Green's productivity is beyond Jesse James, and he causes no immediate threat. So you can pay your fantasy football bills forward with Green from Ladarius in Buffalo and put him in your starting lineup today. Now, as for your bench warmers, guys you should sit this week. You know, guys that you want to start, but like Bryson Tiller said, yeah, that part, those guys. Now, this might be a shocker, but you should bench Marcus Mariota this week. Now, granted, the former Oregon Duck has shown no signs of a sophomore slump this season, but he's facing the stingy pass defense from the Super Bowl champs. Denver is way more vulnerable when it comes to stopping the run anyway. And yes, I'm aware of the fact that Mariota has had an additional week to prepare for Denver, but this pass defense is ranked numero uno and surrenders only 194 passing yards per game, allows just under a 37% conversion rate on third downs, and they have a +5 turnover ratio. The Broncos are also more dangerous in their secondary with the fact that they're all healthy now. And since returning to the lineup, Aqib Talib has picked up right where he left off. I understand that the Titans are playing at home in Nissan Stadium, but it'll take all the Titan receivers and a Nissan Titan truck for Mariota to truly attack the secondary, so it's best that you bench him this week. Moving on to the running back, it's also a good look if you bench Kenneth Dixon this week. The Ravens have a primetime road contest against the current AFC East leaders, the Patriots. And the reason I'm saying not to start Dixon really has nothing to do with this matchup. Nah, the Patriots aren't the bomb.com in being able to truly stop him, but it has more to do with the civil war for the former Louisiana Tech product. Now, just when Dixon started to gain some momentum in fantasy football leagues, Terrence West has had an increase in his snaps, and Dixon tallied only 56 rushing yards and 21 receiving yards last week. Despite the 38 points that the Ravens displayed on Sunday, West, not Dixon, was the recipient of 2 running back scores in Sunday's lopsided win over the Dolphins. There's clearly some uncertainty here in being able to truly rely on Dixon, and I don't like the odds. Your best bet is to bench Dixon and pick someone else to roll with this week. Make some more room on your bench this week for Mohamed Sanu at the wide receiver position. Now, I know that you all are thinking that since Julio Jones suffered from a turf toe injury in Sunday's loss against the Chiefs, this should open up the doors for Sanu. But that would be a no. Look, Muhammad isn't even 100% himself as he's battling a nagging growing injury. Secondly, the Falcons traveled to LA to take on a pretty decent Rams secondary. They're in the top 10 in giving up an average of 240 yards per game. And they will not only cool down Matty Ice, but his receivers will also suffer as a result. Couple this not as favorable matchup with the fact that the undrafted free agent Taylor Gabriel has surpassed Sanu and emerged as the number 2 receiver behind Julio Jones. And that's another reason why the former Rutgers product will most likely be a non-factor today. When it comes to Sanu, you should snooze right on by him this week, put him to sleep, and put him on your bench. At the tight end position, I would also bench Vernon Davis this week. Now, I know that this is a sexy pick and worth the start considering the fact that stud tight end Jordan Reed can't stay healthy for the Redskins. And Davis will most likely be on an island, not really having to rely on any timeshare at the tight end position. And I'll even give you the fact that Kirk Cousins gives tight ends an ample amount of targets. However, Reed is not the go-to candidate at the tight end position when it comes to yards. And also, this is a tough opposing divisional matchup on the road against a mad Eagles team who is pretty stout and stingy against tight ends. And considering the fact that they've lost 7 out of their last 9 games, at this point in the season, they're playing for pride. Shoot, they're even playing for their jobs. and try to play spoiler and keeping the Redskins out of playoff contention, so consequently keep Davis out of your fantasy lineups this week too. Again, if you're thinking about starting these guys, you better do what Bryson Tiller said and yeah, that part. Now, for my favorite part of the show, hey, you need to get up, get out, and get something. Don't let these waiver wire studs pass you by. You need to get up, get out, and get something. Don't sleep since the stock is not high. Ow, as I remix Goody Mob and Outkast right there. All right, no doubt. Let me get this segment started with a surprise at the quarterback position this week, and that's Brock Osweiler. Now, Osweiler has definitely had moments this season where he has hit Brock bottom, but this very generous matchup against the Colts this week should make him afloat. Now, don't be fooled by what the Colts did Monday night against the subpar Jets grounded offense. The more realistic Colts defense is the one that we saw Thanksgiving night when Antonio Brown went off with 3 touchdowns against them. Osweiler is very usable in this game as the Colts rank number 28 in pass defense and surrender an average of 270 passing yards a game, and both teams are fighting for the divisional title, so Osweiler should compete in today's matchup. Now, he still ain't worth the $72 million blockbuster contract that the Texans offered him in the offseason, but he's worth a sleeper role in your fantasy lineups this week. Now, for your sleeper at the running back, I had to dig deep on this one, and I'm talking about deep as the abyss, but this could be some value in this sneaky pickup, and I'm going with Rex Burkhead of the Bengals. Cincinnati is very confident going forward with the Tyrannosaurus Rex, since there has been a lack of depth at the running back position due to Giovanni Bernard's injury. The former Nebraska Cornhusker put up a very, very quiet, in my Elmer Fudd voice, outing Sunday at home against the Eagles, turning in a solid 4.75 yards per carry average, and he caught 4 out of his 5 passes. Serving as the counterpart to Jeremy Hill, you can expect the versatile running back's input to increase against the especially powder puff matchup this week against the Browns. Put Burkhead as your workstead and move him to the head of your sleepers running back class this week. Now, for your sleeper at the wide receiver position, I would go with Quincy Enunwa this week. Now, I know that there might be some concern considering the fact that Quincy has taken a bit of a plunge over the past couple of weeks. And the Jets' offense has definitely been grounded. But this matchup on the menu today gives an appetizing opportunity to devour a fantasy football plate filled with stats. And of course, I'm once again talking about the San Francisco treat, the redundant script here. Granted, Enunwa has only had one singular 100-yard game performance a couple of weeks ago against his divisional opponent in the Patriots, but he has reached the 90-plus yards mark 3 times this season, and it's very possible that he'll return to that glory today. Now, I remember Quincy's being a reputable dining establishment back in the day with the divine yeast rolls, but you can expect this Quincy Enunwa, that is, to be doing the eating today against this bon appetit of a matchup that will provide the perfect course for the receiver to get back on track this week. And lastly, for your sleeper tight end this week, I'd roll with Dennis Pitterbread. Yeah, that's the nickname that I gave him. Now, I realized that before his 2-touchdown performance Sunday against the Dolphins, he hadn't sniffed the end zone since 3 years ago. But that has had a lot to do with injury. And Monday night, the Ravens visit the Patriots, a game that can turn into a shootout. And the now healthy Pitter's involvement is necessary in order for Baltimore to compete in this contest. The type of offense we've been expecting from Baltimore since they fired Mark Trestman earlier this season has finally started to come into fruition, and the Ravens are now stretching the field more, and they're capitalizing with passing touchdowns. New England's secondary gives up about 240 yards a game, and if Joe Flacco plans on slinging that cannon arm anywhere near 50 times again like he did last week against Miami, you can expect Dennis Pitterbread to be the recipient of many of those passes and give you a toasty performance this week against their nemesis in the New England Patriots. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of your Fantasy Fulfilled. Thanks again so much for tuning in. And please don't forget to go out and get your copy of my book, When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, The Ultimate Survival Guide for Relationships and Households During Football Season. Available right now on Amazon.com and CreateSpace.com. And make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is SheSPN The Network. And you continue to stay tuned. So just chill to the next episode. Thanks again so much, and we'll catch you next time, and I'm out. What's going on, good people? It's your girl again, Latasha Miles, a.k.a. Joan Madden, the Gridiron Goddess. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and Instagram at she_SPN and at Facebook at Latasha Joan Madden Miles. And subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is SheSPN The Network. Hey, I'm kind of a big deal. You know, I'm a little bit cute, got some beauty, got some brains. That way on that channel, you'll be able to see the interviews that I've done, some of the famous people that I worked with, the projects I worked on, things of that nature. And don't forget to log on to CreateSpace.com and Amazon.com and get your copies of my book, When Football Season Turns You Into His Side Chick, The Ultimate Survival Guide for Relationships and Households During Football Season. I appreciate your support. And hey, I gotta run. They're over here calling me on the other line. I gotta manage another fantasy football league. I'm out.
Gon' kick it off there, whoa. Gon' kick it off there, whoa. Hold up, we living big dreams now. As it seems now, we doing big things now. You on a small scale, we do it nationally. With an all-girls squad, now that's a fantasy league, whoa.